Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. An axe wielding maniac terrorizes residents of Plymouth, Massachusetts after a Black Friday riot ends in tragedy. Picking off victims one by one, the seemingly random revenge killings soon become of a larger, sinister plan. Yes, folks, this is our Raw Reaction review for Thanksgiving. It's been a long road to get here, Luke. 16 years since the release of Grindhouse, and since we first laid eyes on the concept, fake trailer, whatever you want to call it, for Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. And now, all this time later, he has finally been able to bring it to the big screen, and we got a chance to check it out. I mean, this was definitely, when you talk about Grindhouse, I love both those films. I think that they're good in their own right. I think Death Proof is pretty underrated, but I see a lot of people coming around to it now these days. But man, these trailers, they really, I think, were some of the highlights for some people coming out of that movie. And they still are great. I mean, we've had things like Machete, which was a lot of fun, Hobo with a Shotgun, which I think is a bit more niche. More people don't really remember that one as much, but that was made into a movie. But yeah, Thanksgiving, this was definitely one of the big ones where people were like, yeah, let's get that. Let's make that happen. And it's here.
Yeah, and just going into that Grindhouse trailer, it was such a strong trailer as well. It's something that I still go back to and watch just out of pure enjoyment because it's so well put together. And then once the trailer came out for this, it was, it had a different feel, had a different vibe. It wasn't necessarily like that original trailer, but it was still a good vibe. It was something very interesting. I know we had talked about it on the Sunday Scaries. It had that My Bloody Valentine feel, that small town feel that they were really taking advantage of. And of course, we talked about the design of the slasher, which was really well done. So, going into this, while it was a different vibe from that original Grindhouse trailer, I was still very excited for this one.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that this is one of those ones that we've been very vocal about it. We love holiday horror on the channel. And Thanksgiving really doesn't have that many representatives in its corner. I mean, we are big proponents of the Thanksgiving films. Turkey, he's kind of the holiday icon when it comes to slashers or horror characters in Thanksgiving. And I'm sure there's some niche picks out there, but there's really nothing. And to kick things off, I'm just going to flat out say it. I am so happy to welcome Eli Roth's latest slasher to the Thanksgiving dinner table with turkey. And those two can carve up a nice meal together because I had so much fun with this movie.
Yeah. And, like kind of looking at Thanksgiving, a little more off the wall, I would say, not your conventional kind of slasher Thanksgiving tale with killer turkey. But, looking into Thanksgiving, I think this falls more into that form of, your typical slasher in a good way. It's something that, usually we save our verdicts till the end, but it's like this is a big win, I think, especially for holiday horror. One of my personal big favorite subgenres, and going into this one, like I said, I was really excited. And you just kind of hope that they're gonna hit all those points. And I gotta say, Eli Roth, without a doubt, hit all those points for me.
I agree. I think that Eli Roth, I mean, he's somebody that's had a lot of hit or miss for me. Like for every Green Inferno where there's something that I enjoy, for every original Hostel where there's things I can appreciate. There are films like I think he had that, what was it called, Aftermath or whatever, the one with the it was like a aftershock, I think it was. It was like about a earthquake, and just wasn't big on it. But I don't know why this man has not attempted to make a slasher. This is coming so much later in his career than I ever thought it would be, because he executes this beautifully for slasher fans. I mean, I leaned over to you and whispered a couple times saying, like, this feels very Scream. This feels very My Bloody Valentine. Obviously, there's Halloween references in there, but all of it feels like such a strong melding. Like, to me, it is homage, but it's competent homage. There's a lot of like narrative stuff here that's just a lot of fun to play with, and they really go for those tropes, and they do subvert your expectations. Like things will kind of go the way that you expect them to go, but then there's other things where it's just like, oh, that was kind of surprising. And I think that one of the big elements to me in this film that stood out was the execution of kills and scares was handled eloquently for a slasher film.
Yes, and us being a horror channel, we've had the privilege of seeing a lot of current slashers. One of the most recent ones being Founders Day, which really didn't hit for us, and felt like there was something missing. And looking at Thanksgiving here, where you say, you can feel that My Bloody Valentine, that Scream feel. Yes, I think that DNA is in there, but Eli Roth puts his own spin on it. Whereas, you look at something like a Cabin Fever, a Hostel, even a Knock Knock, where I think all those are reflections of Thanksgiving, where it's like you can see pieces and parts of in his filmography of different characters and different tones, where I think it all really came together. And like you're saying, it took Eli Roth this long to make a slasher, and this is really, it does seem like his bread and butter, where you mix that kind of sometimes, the comedy I think is great. Sometimes it's supposed to be a little eye rolly. I think he really does go for that tone in a sense. And
Mm-hmm.
then, just with that gore effects, I mean, like looking into this, I think the opening here is really strong. That kind of inciting incident of what's going to lead to, our Puritan slasher throughout the duration of the film. I think that's really strong. It really is something that I think, sets the pace. And I think this is a really fast paced film for being an over an hour 30, I believe. This is something that really goes. It was, I couldn't believe, I think I looked at my phone when we were 50 minutes in. I was like, I can't believe we're already 50 minutes into this thing, because it just felt like we were moving. But looking into this, as soon as we had gotten that gore at the very beginning, and then once we kind of get into form of the slasher, there are some really big gore effects at the
Oh
very
yeah,
start of this that are going to get you on board.
absolutely. And I will say that it took me a second. I think if I got to really lay some criticisms out before I sit here and completely gush about this, because yes, I really did love this movie. Um, I got to say the Eli Rothisms, and you know exactly what I'm saying when I say that, is when it comes to his dialogue and the way that he writes certain side characters, I should say, of lots of gratuitous language just for the sake of gratuitous language. It seems like lots of just like goofy lines, things to make the audience laugh, but there's in such quick succession of each other that to me it just feels very much like, oh man, is this really what we're getting into? Is this kind of what this is going to be? But I think like right after that inciting incident, right after that sequence, they really do start to find their form, and they really start to get into it. Yes, there are still a couple of goofy lines, but there is a sequence towards the third act of this film which could have easily, easily, I could see it now being filled up with just goofy lines, not really hitting for me, going over the top too much. And the way that it's executed, I loved it. I thought it was excellent. It's around a dinner table. That's all I'll say, and it was awesome.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of moments in here that are like that. That I think, when I reflect back on this, where sometimes you only have maybe one or two scenes throughout the duration of a film that are really going to stick with you. I think Eli Roth really set up a consistent series of events that I think are you go from one to the next that are really going to stick with you. And I think for some of the comedy that he does have, I think it fits that tone. The audience that we saw this with seemed to have a really good time with it. I think a lot of those jokes, a lot of that kind of questionable dialogue, it hits for the tone that we're going with when you're kind of going into that kind of Thanksgiving feel, where everyone's dressing up like John Carver throughout the town. And I think a lot of people had some chuckles for it, and I think it really does fit for that tone, because some of it's a little lighthearted, especially. But then once we get into that gore, you could hear the gasps, those audible gasps of
Hmm.
how far they went with it. And it's nothing. It's nothing like that's torturous or anything like that. But it's like what they do show, and they don't shy away from the gore in this, which I absolutely loved. It makes this film, I think, worth the price of admission alone.
Oh, absolutely. And I wouldn't say it's Terrifier 2 levels of gore, but it's up there. It's definitely it's not your grandfather's slasher film by any means when you're talking gore here. Like they really don't pull their punches with a lot of it, and they really go for it. And I'm happy to report that most of it is practical. Which was really fun to see. Obviously, there's a few moments of CG. There's one kill towards the start of this that was very obviously CG, and I don't think it translated the best. But I think you move so quickly past it, and then the follow up sequence with it is so worth it that it's just one of those things. It's easy to forgive. But yeah, I really think that for me, we complimented It's a Wonderful Knife for really sticking the tone with the small town and just fitting into its holiday really well and making you really feel the Christmas feel while implementing those slasher elements. For me, I think that Thanksgiving succeeds in that tenfold. I think that this really got me excited now that we're merely just a week away from Thanksgiving for us here. And, it got me sitting there thinking, man, I cannot wait to own this movie on Blu-ray. I cannot wait to throw this on around this time of year, every year, and just have another slasher horror film that I can just throw on at the end of my Thanksgiving dinner and just enjoy. I can laugh, I can be shocked, and still have a lot of fun. I mean, we really haven't discussed any of the performances, but for the most part, we were talking about it off air here. The characters of like our teenagers, these are very atypical, slasher trope characters. They don't have a lot of depth, but they don't need it. This isn't something where it's like we need Sienna levels of, just depth to them. That we don't need a full backstory. They are simply here to move the story along. I really liked a lot of the supporting cast, especially Patrick Dempsey, who, when I saw him on the poster in this and I saw him in the trailer, it was just one of those things where I'm like, okay, yeah, he'll be in the film. He'll be doing his thing. But I didn't expect him to have the kind of role that he had in this. And I got to say, he was so damn likable in this film. Like, he was one of those characters that I was really engaged with every time that he was on screen. And a lot of these side characters were just really well done.
Yeah, and looking into, I think that was my only critique was, that a lot of these characters, they just fall into everything that we've seen before. They're not breaking down barriers or anything in that sense, but I don't think they meant to. I think Eli Roth wanted to kind of have those tropey characters to, kind of accentuate the feel of Thanksgiving and in what we're going to be in for here. So I don't think he was necessarily looking to break those molds, but as a reviewer looking at the film objectively, when you're kind of looking for character development, there isn't much there, which is fine, especially when you're kind of dealing with slashers. It didn't feel like we were really spinning our tires or that he created a bunch of unlikable characters. And I think that's the biggest negative you can create is a bunch of characters that you completely dislike in the slasher film, because then you're going to end up liking your slasher, which we've seen throughout the slasher wave of the 80s pretty much. So for me, it's not breaking down barriers like Dylan said, cookie cutter stuff, but the performances were serviceable. Patrick Dempsey was great when he was on screen. Rick Hoffman,
Yeah,
again, he every time I see him in anything, he's just got this kind of great comedic performance, even if he's not intentionally doing it. And again, he's not on screen a bunch, but when he is, I think it's something that I really enjoyed. But overall, like I think you're coming here for the gore and really that small town effect and kind of seeing how they're going to set up these kills. And you more than tenfold get that here.
absolutely. Yeah, they really do give you what you're looking for as far as just a good slasher, creative kills, an iconic looking killer. Honestly, like there's a sequence in this film, and I saw you get excited, I got excited, that involves the mask, and I was just like, they're paying homage to so many things in this film, and that's one of those things that we've seen a lot recently. That again, I was just like, God damn, this is good. Like this is so well done. And again, it's gonna remind you of things. It's gonna remind you of Halloween. It's gonna remind you of My Bloody Valentine, Scream, all these excellent, wonderful slashers that we've grown up with. And I mean, there's even a solid reference to like Nightmare on Elm Street towards the end of the film here. And it's like, it's all so good. It's yes, is it hitting the nail on the head sometimes? Absolutely. But if you love these films like we do, this is comfort food. This is exactly what I said it's going to be for me now, where I'm going to sit down after Thanksgiving dinner. I'm going to throw this on and I'm just going to have a good time. I'm going to get in my happy place and I'm going to watch John Carver carve up some people, and I'm going to throw on Thanksgiving and watch Turkey talk some shit and slash some people up. My Thanksgiving is more complete now than it ever has been.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll get a crossover. But you know, but looking at this, for me, so much fun in the theater. I went in hoping this was going to be great, and I'll say it more than met my expectations. And yes, you will understand some references here, but I think they're not met with eye rolls. It's not like they're bombarding you with things that you want to remember, or things. I think you're wanting those, and they kind of give you the warm fuzzies every time you recognize a reference, and recognizing the DNA of all these other slashers and seeing how it's translated into Thanksgiving. This one with the gore, with that small town feel, with everything, I mean, they just knocked this one out of the park for me.
Absolutely. I think it's safe to say that this is a must see for both of us. I think that this exceeded expectations for us. Yes. Is it, again, breaking any real barriers? No, but you're going to have so much fun with this that I don't think you're going to care. I really think that you're got to go into this again looking at this as horror comfort food and just sit back, get some popcorn, enjoy this, go home, have Thanksgiving dinner, and just go out with friends, because this is a fun movie. And I got to say, more so than a lot of the slashers that I've seen recently, I want a sequel. I want like 3 more of these. I want to see this Puritan slasher continue on. I don't care if they get really shitty. I just want to see it, because again, it is just that. It is a harkening back to the 80s slasher when they would get a million sequels, and I want it.
Absolutely. And, like looking at this film, holiday horror, there's a very exclusive list and in terms of essential viewing around Thanksgiving and
Absolutely.
Christmas. So it's really hard to kind of, wedge yourself in there if you're a new film. But I can say without a doubt, I knew that this was going to be on my list for years to come, about halfway through. And,
Agreed.
this one, easy pickup. Can't wait for it. I'm hoping it's digitally released before Christmas. I know it's a big ask, because I would really like to see this again. Honestly, it wasn't even over before I was hoping that I could see it again.
Same.
So this one, and like Dylan said, we've seen a lot of more modern slashers. And this one, I can easily say, has a lot of gas left in the tank in terms of sequels. So I would love to see. I second that. I would love to see something else in the Thanksgiving universe. So fingers crossed on that one. But yes, this one is going to be essential holiday viewing from Thanksgiving to Christmas.
Absolutely. And I'm going to declare it right here at the end of this review. John Carver, welcome to the family, baby. You can come on in here with Art the Clown, Michael, Jason. I want to see you succeed. I want to see you do more. I want to see it all. Like, I loved it. I love the look. I said to you as we were walking out, next year, Spirit Halloween, I guarantee you're going to see masks all over the walls of this guy, and we're going to pick them up. We're going to buy them and put them in the background. I'm half tempted to go as John Carver with the big axe for Halloween next year, just because, again, it's so fucking fun. It's just so fun.
It
It's
works
great.
from Halloween to Thanksgiving, so
It
like
does.
you're getting a ton of mileage out of it.
Absolutely. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap us up here for our review of Thanksgiving. Another knock it out of the park. Honestly, I think one of Eli Roth's best films in years, and one of the best slashers. I mean, Terrifier 2 is amazing, yes, but taking that out of the equation, one of the best slashers we've had in years, for sure.
Absolutely.
But alrighty, guys, that's going to wrap it up here for us. So hit that like button. Definitely helps get this review out there in the algorithm. It's boosting it up quite a bit for us. We're kind of finding out that that's the ebb and the flow here on YouTube to get these things out there. And if you're just discovering us and you feel like we deserve it, hit that subscribe button for us. And yeah, that's going to wrap us up here. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.